In 2018, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that states could legalize sports gambling.
It ruled unconstitutional a 25-year-old law that had barred most states from legalizing sports betting.
Since then, 38 states have taken the plunge, including my home state of North Carolina, where the consequences have been lucrative.
Sports betting apps, they made more than $105 million in April. That translates to nearly $19 million in taxes collected by the state.
Upstarts and even established media companies like Disney-owned ESPN have flooded the market, and in many places, you can even gamble from your phone. That ease of access means you don't have to go to the casino anymore. But all of this also has a human toll.
In about 3 to 5 years, we're going to see an onslaught of people who have lost their houses, lost their jobs, lost their marriages because of problem gambling.
I'm Anissa Khalifa. This is The Broadside, where we tell stories from our home at the crossroads of the South. This week, the rapid spread of online sports gambling and how it's changing the game for both fans and players.
You come to the New Yorker Radio Hour for conversations that go deeper with people you really want to hear from, whether it's Bruce Springsteen or Questlove or Olivia Rodrigo, Liz Cheney, or the godfather of artificial intelligence, Jeffrey Hinton, or some of my extraordinarily well-informed colleagues at The New Yorker. So join us every week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, wherever you listen to podcasts.
What was it? On Tuesday, I guess it was? On Tuesday, I won $21 on the Hurricanes. So right at even for the week.
Jason deBruyn is a supervising editor for digital news at WUNC. He's also a sports fanatic who loves soccer, Carolina Panthers football, and March Madness.
So I've been a sports fan my whole life, and one fun aspect of sports is just trying to predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I know you always do really well in the company bracket. Or I've noticed I'm usually not even participating because I don't know anything.
Yeah, right. And so, that's just part of sports culture.
Despite his predictive powers, Jason has never really had more than a casual interest in betting on sports. But that changed last year when North Carolina became one of 30 states in recent years to legalize online sports gambling. He got a little obsessed.
Tell us about this tracking of your bets that you've been doing. So you have listeners can't see it, but he's got this spreadsheet open in front of him.
Yes. So longtime WUNC listeners might remember that I'm the former data reporter here. And so I have done a lot of data work, and I knew that I was going to be placing a lot more bets. And I was like, all right, let's really track this. Let's see how we're doing. And so my spreadsheet is split up here into soccer, NBA, college football, college basketball, NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, and totals. And
that already is making my head hurt.
And this is going to be terrible. In the NFL one, I've placed 282 bets.
Wow.
This season, and that's just on the NFL. But I'm happy to say that the total, I'm up $213.76 on this NFL season. Mostly, this is going to get people really mad at me, mostly betting against the Panthers.
Jason.
I know. Well, I saw early on, I was like, look, the Panthers stink. They're going to stink. Might as well at least make a little money off them, right? So that accounts for the vast majority of me being up on the NFL is betting against the Panthers. I know that's terrible to say.
Yeah, you betrayed your own people.
I did betray them.
While his stat tracking might be a bit intense, Jason's foray into online sports betting isn't unusual. A recent study showed that 1 in 5 Americans now have a sports betting account, and the money here is mind-blowing. In the 9 months since legalization, North Carolinians placed nearly $5 billion worth of bets. Nationwide, the number in 2024 was a staggering $150 billion. For many governments, the opportunity to tax revenue generated by sports gambling is just too good to pass up.
It wouldn't surprise me if in a few years, all 50 states are legalizing gambling.
Jason Quick is a senior writer for The Athletic. He's covered the NBA for 28 years.
But lately, I've been branching out and doing more stories that focus on the kind of the human connection between sports and people.
And right now, that intersection is dominated by the sports gambling gold rush. Jason says 2 companies are currently leading the charge.
Oh, definitely FanDuel and DraftKings with online gambling. They're the big fish, and they are, swamping the airwaves, be it radio, television, print ads, trying to lure people in.
Look, wait a minute, there's my $200. That was fast.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Bet just $5 to get $200.
All customers get a profit boost every NFL game day.
Get up to a $1,500 new customer offer and bonus bets when you sign up now.
Let's go, North Carolina.
America's #1 sportsbook is coming to North Carolina on March 11th.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when gambling was legalized in North Carolina last year, and it was like every single podcast that I listened to had ads for like sports betting, sports gambling. It was constant.
They're luring people in with kind of the same technology and same mechanisms that Vegas uses with slot machines, with various colors, with sounds, and with wording that kind of make you not think that you're gambling money.
Right. And then what about big sports networks like ESPN, for example? How do they interact with this new sports gambling ecosystem?
That's been a really interesting development as of late. They're incorporating it into their broadcasts. I mean, ESPN, if you look on NFL, their pregame shows, they have segments about betting.
Here are tonight's betting odds brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. Charles, don't say anything.
TNT with the NBA, they have their talking heads, Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith, have a little segment of this is what we would recommend today.
Miami's favored by 5.5.
I bet you $20 the Heat win.
So it's become a part of the mainstream everyday broadcast.
So sports betting, I mean, this new form of it is certainly something we haven't seen before, but sports betting in itself is nothing new, right? As long as we've had sports, people have been making bets and gambling on them. So what makes this different?
Well, it used to be you had to go to a casino or know a bookie to place a bet. Now it's on your phone. You can do it from your couch, on your break at work, during a meeting at work. You can hide it from your family easily by just going to the bathroom and taking your phone with you and placing bets. So it's a mobile and accessible tool. And that's why I think it has exploded. It's so easy to do it. And also, you don't have to have ready cash like you do in a casino. This, with your phone or with your computer, you have funds that are wired from your bank account. And so you have ready money there. You don't have to go to the bank and have actual money in your hand. And I think that's another tool that makes it dangerous for some people.
Is there something in particular about sports gambling that makes them feel overconfident about betting on games? What is that?
That's what it is about sports, because most sports fans are fanatics. They follow their teams. They follow their leagues. They feel like they're well informed. Other gambling, like roulette or blackjack, it involves a great deal of luck and just happenstance and chance. These guys feel, no, I know the Kansas City Chiefs. I know their defense. They're not going to give up more than 20 points. So I'm going to bet the under. But that is why sports gambling is so big and so popular and so dangerous, because people feel like they're not gambling. They feel like they're making informed decisions and informed predictions on what is going to happen.
You recently wrote an astonishing account of one man's experience with these apps. Who is Jordan Holt?
Yeah, Jordan's a really relatable guy. He's a former Marine. He lives in Yuma, Arizona. He's 42, and he was terrified of gambling because one day back in the mid-2000s, He went to an Indian casino after work and just wanted to play some blackjack with buddies and have a good night. And he figured he'd be willing to bet about $200. Well, he ended up losing about $2,000, and it brought him to tears. He went to his girlfriend and said, I'm an idiot. I just lost a bunch of money. So he thought he was done with gambling. He didn't gamble for like the next 15 or so years. And then online gambling came to Arizona. It was one of the states that passed online gambling. And he resisted and resisted, but his friends kept saying, come on, look, it's easy. If you join, I get $50 and you get 50 free bucks. And the next thing you know, he was placing little bets and he was winning. He ended up doing all right at the start, but then he wanted more. And he started placing bigger and bigger bets and started this slippery slope that, a long story short, in 15 months, span of 15 months, he lost $110,000 and nearly lost his marriage.
That's just that's a crazy amount of money. So for Jordan, what was really his rock bottom?
Well, there were a series of them. He kept having to take out loans, and the first big loan he had was $50,000, and that's when he knew he had to tell his wife just how deep he had fallen. And so they took out a loan, and he told her that, okay, I'm done, I'm quitting. But he didn't. He kept dabbling, he kept making even bigger bets. And he was nearing the end of his money. And so in January, he came up and he said, I'm going to make one last Hail Mary, he called it. And it was a 12-team parlay. And that means there's 12 different bets he makes that form into one bet. And the advantage of parlays is they pay out big. The danger of them is if one thing goes wrong, you lose it all.
So he needed all 12 of his predictions to come true in order to get that payoff.
Yes.
Wow.
And so in January, he made a 12-leg parlay. And as he got off work, he noticed that 10 of them had already hit.
We did the math. Jordan's bet was so improbable that it had less than 1/10 of a single percentage point chance of paying out. But here he was, within inches of a lifeline, turning $200 into $20,000. When we return from the break, we find out what happened with Jordan's Hail Mary parlay and look at the long-term consequences of legalized sports gambling in America.
Hey, I'm Anita Rao. If you like the thoughtful conversations you hear on the Broadside, you may also like the show I host called Embodied. Each episode is a deep dive into a topic related to sex, relationships, and health. We take on everything from how a schizophrenia diagnosis can impact intimacy to what it's like to be in a relationship with an AI chatbot or be a stand-up comedian with a stutter. We meet some incredible people who are down to explore big questions about our bodies and society, and talk about things that are sometimes a little taboo. You can get new episodes of our show each week. Find Embodied from WUNC wherever you get your podcasts.
At the start of his evening commute, Jordan Holt won the 11th game out of 12 in his long shot bet, setting up what would become the most stressful drive of his life.
So as he's driving home, he's got one leg left to win $20,000 off a $200 bet. That game is the Boston Celtics, who are the best team in the NBA. They went on to win the NBA championship against the Milwaukee Bucks. And he needed the score to go over, I believe it was 240 some points.
Boston winning last night to go 18-0 on their home floor.
Reporter Jason Quick says this was a pretty reasonable wager. The game featured two of the highest scoring teams in professional basketball.
But as it turned out, the Celtics had one of their worst games of the season. Again, this is the NBA champions, and they went, I think, like a 5 or 6 minute spell without even scoring, and he needs points.
A resounding victory. The Milwaukee Bucks even up the season series. And a 33-point win tonight.
So he's just going crazy. He's in the driveway of his house, and he learns that they didn't hit the number. He lost all of his money. And so he's walking into his house going, how am I going to tell my wife that I did it again? So he had to face the music, and all hell broke loose. And that's kind of one of the side effects of problem gambling is the lying and the hiding and the secret life you have to lead. And I think that's what was really eating at Jordan throughout this whole process. He was leading a secret life.
Right. And it's kind of a hallmark of this type of addiction, right? Is that you
Right.
end up in these cycles. I mean, understanding that it is a disease, like, was he able to get help? Is he doing better now? Are they doing better now?
Yes, he's doing better. He goes to 3 Gamblers Anonymous meetings a week. And it's interesting. And I talked to a Gambling Anonymous representative, and they said they have seen their age demographic shift greatly. It used to be a 40-year-old would be the youngest person in their room. Now it's 20-year-olds.
Wow.
Because of sports and the online appeal to young people and the phones. So we're seeing a shift, and this is just the beginning. They're bracing for a huge, huge onslaught of people with problem gambling characteristics.
That's shocking. I mean, what struck me reading your story is that people can want to stop and get help. I mean, Jordan wanted to stop and get help, but there are these
Multiple
mechanisms,
times,
right? Yeah, that kind of keep pulling them back in and keep enticing them. Can you tell me about these enticements? So when people like Jordan try to pull away and stop betting in the apps, what happens?
Multiple times he tried to quit, and when he would go even 3 days without placing a bet, that's when he would get an email. Hey, Jordan, we noticed you haven't bet. Here's $200 to play with. And then he would go, well, I can't pass that up. And the next thing you know, he's back on another bender making bets. So he felt he was multiple times trying to quit, but that's when they would send out, emails and offers. And that lure is so great for someone who has this addiction that they have no chance.
When we talk about the human toll of gambling, a lot of times we think about people like Jordan, right? But there's this weird twist to this story that's been playing out in a really public way. How has this started to impact players?
Well, it's broad. From one standpoint, players are now feeling the heat from jilted gamblers. I'm around the NBA a lot. I speak a lot to players, and you see them now post online, I don't care about your parlay bet, because fans are lashing out at them that you cost me this much money by not scoring enough points, or you cost me my parlay because you didn't score enough points. So that is what
wild.
It is. It really is. So it's increased the hostility between fans and players. And this happens even live at games. Players have said that fans from the stands will yell at them that, I need you to get 2 more rebounds for my bet. And players are just like, we don't care about your bet. This is our profession.
Wow.
But then also, this has extended to players. Players in the NFL have been suspended by the league because they are gambling on games. There's been a player in the NBA, Jonte Porter, has been banned from the NBA because he was betting on his own games. Speaking with professors and people who are deep into this dynamic, they think we're just seeing the start of this, because problem gambling usually takes anywhere from 1 to 3 years to develop. And so because the legalization is so new, we have yet to see the patterns and the problems develop. But in about 3 to 5 years, we're going to see an onslaught of people really who have lost their houses, their homes, lost their jobs, lost their marriages because of problem gambling.
You've been around sports as a fan and as a journalist for your whole life.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is good for sports?
That's a really good question. I mean, I dabble in it. If, like for the Super Bowl, it's fun to be at a Super Bowl party and compare little bets with people. But I think if there was more guardrails set up, I would be more accepting of it. But I think it's really dangerous. So I think my answer would be no. I don't think this is good for sports. It's like the wild, wild west out there. And I think the industry is a little bit too predatory.
All right, so I had like a big Cowboys parlay. Oh, that didn't hit. I had, here's a parlay. Saquon and Bijan both to have over 50 and Drake London to have 50 receiving. I had Pitts and Goddard, 2 tight ends to both score a touchdown. Here's just a straight Eagles.
Just like Jason Quick, WUNC's Jason deBruyn gambles for fun, even if his spreadsheets are a little intimidating. And it's important to point out that most people who gamble do not become addicted. But an estimated 1 to 2% of the U.S. population are gambling addicts. It can sound like a small number, but that's several million people. And it's something that's never far from his mind.
It seems like you've been really strategic about, as you described, making sure you read the fine print and, only choosing the bets that are going to be like most advantageous. But like for someone who's not able to do that or who doesn't know how to do that, could these types of quote unquote free money giveaways be seen as predatory?
I think yes. And I think that's part of the big problem here, is that, a lot of this is being marketed specifically maybe to people who aren't reading the fine print, who aren't taking a close look. And I think that very much can be seen as predatory and really targeting people who, are in many ways more vulnerable than I am.
So in general, how are you doing when it comes to sports gambling?
Pretty well, I think. I mean, my swings are never that big, right? For me, a standard bet is $5, right? So we are not talking a lot of money. And it's just a lot of fun.
How much money have you made?
So if I look at my spreadsheet, I'm currently up like more than $2,000. That's maybe why it's easy for me to have a bit of a cavalier attitude about it, right? Because I am up. If I were down $2,000, would I have a different opinion? Possibly.
Should I ask you again in 6 months?
You can ask me again in 6 months, see where I'm at. It's something I have also considered, right? Because like I kind of went into this saying, I'm never going to go down too much. But if I'm up $2,000, like that's nice. So maybe I'm not the best person to ask at this moment in time. I can be realistic about that. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay. Good.
You got any bets you want me to place for you? What you want?
No thanks. But I hope you enjoy.
If you want to check out Jason Quick's incredible reporting about gambling addiction in The Athletic, we've dropped a link in this week's show notes. This episode of The Broadside was produced by me, Anissa Khalifa, and our editor, Jared Walker. Wilson Sayre is our executive producer. The Broadside is a production of WUNC North Carolina Public Radio and is part of the NPR network. You can email us at broadside@wunc.org. If you enjoyed the show, leave us a rating, a review, or share it with a friend. Thanks for listening, y'all. We'll be back next week.